Afre Guam. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk, where we talk everything movies. I'm Ken, and I'm joined by Asha, Jason, and Uncle Ken in studio. And today we're going to be talking about a beloved director of American cinema.
Are you saying that with a sarcastic tone?
No, M. Night Shyamalan. So
some people would think this is only going to be a 2-minute podcast.
It'll be a quick podcast, but we'd like to remind you that Real Talk is sponsored by the good folks over at Tango Theaters, where you can watch Glass, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, and we're going to get straight into it, talking about his filmography and all the movies that he's directed. He's had some bangers, but he's also had some duds, right?
I think he's like, you can sum up his career at least to this point. Hopefully, with Glass and completing the trilogy, he kind of like reminds everybody that at one point he was seen as like, kind of like the boy genius, but he was a victim of his own success because he got so good so fast. He suffered from the sophomore slump for a very long time, and everybody thought everything after he did, like with Signs, was crap.
And to be real, I think the first 3 or 4 movies by M. Night Shyamalan they all had a great twist ending, and that became something he was known for. So, fair warning, we are going to have spoilers this episode of the podcast. So if you haven't watched an M. Night Shyamalan movie, like The Sixth Sense or The Happening or
The Sixth Sense is a big one,
or whatever,
earmuffs.
You might not want to watch this or listen to this episode of the podcast, but this is going to be a good podcast. He's directed 13 movies. We're only going to talk about 11 of them because 2 of them I'm sure nobody saw. So we're only talking about the career from The Sixth Sense on, right? So I guess we might as well just start off with The Sixth Sense, Chase.
Also, what's interesting is, and we've talked about this on the podcast like a bunch of times and everything, horror is a genre where if you want to be like a very, very successful director in Hollywood, you tend to pass through horror, right? Especially if you were like coming of age in the 80s and 90s. You did horror maybe in like the 70s, the exploitation movies. Steven Spielberg did horror with Jaws. Peter Jackson did horror with, Dead Alive before he did Lord of the Rings and King Kong. But M. Night Shyamalan seems to like really stay in his lane.
What do you mean?
Like he really only stuck to kind of like the horror genre. He never kind of like deviated.
Like suspense and
that is
plot.
Or is it even?
That
is it even horror?
Untrue. That is actually very, very untrue.
I would love to hear this.
So M. Night Shyamalan has always considered himself an emotion director, and his movies are all dramas with some emotional feedback in the characters.
Is he emo?
But let's just talk about the first movie, which is Sixth Sense, and I think it's safe to say that the twist is like one of the most brilliant twists in all of cinema.
Right up there with Kevin Spacey being Kaiser Soze.
Even bigger than
even
that.
Big. No, I would agree with that. Yes.
Yes,
I would agree.
Uncle Ken?
Right up there with Psycho.
There you go.
Yeah. Norman Bates is his mother.
And I mean, it was just so... It's such a big twist what happens in that movie.
Right at the end,
kind of,
the same as the end of From Justin to Kelly. They wind up together.
It set the stage for the... it set it just set the height of what he had to reach for the rest of his filmography.
Set the bar.
Set the bar.
It's amazing that no one could see that coming too. Like,
is it his best? I mean, it is his best movie, right? I mean, I think it's safe to say that The Sixth Sense is by far M. Night Shyamalan's best movie he's directed.
Yeah, most successful for sure.
Yeah,
I think so.
Out of the ones I watched anyway, yeah.
So
okay, and let's address the elephant in the room. If you didn't know right now, Bruce Willis is talking to Haley Joel Osment for the duration of the movie. Bruce Willis is actually dead at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
He's a ghost. He's an apparition.
It was such a good plot twist.
And the kid sees dead people.
Yeah.
He sees dead people. And,
I see dead people.
And
literally.
You find out that...
Oh, when he finds out that he's dead, it's just like, oh.
Yeah. And
But
Bruce Willis is also dead.
What year was that, 97?
99.
Okay. And it's amazing that nobody could kind of sniff that out. I mean, this generally was pre-internet for the majority of people in the community. Definitely before social media. If this came out on social media, this wouldn't even have lasted 2 minutes.
But the signs were all there. Like
I saw the
you
signs.
know,
I figured it out before the end of the movie.
Dang, sorry.
You can figure it out before the movie, before the end of the movie.
Yeah, well, Uncle Ken is the guy who already knows that the butler did it.
You know, it's funny because some movies have tried to emulate that type of theme. If you've ever watched The Uninvited, which is a story about the two girls, the two sisters, their mom dies in a fire accident at the home, and one of the sisters
The
gets put into
Uninvited.
a mental ward, and she comes back home, and there's a similar twist. I don't want to spoil that one, but that movie's trash, right? And Sixth Sense is obviously just
The Uninvited.
great movie.
Sounds so
If
good.
you haven't seen that, definitely see that. It's easily 10 out of 10.
That's right.
That is,
and the acting there was just really,
Yeah.
really good.
and Bruce Willis. I mean, and you'll see a recurring theme in a lot of M. Night Shyamalan movies. He uses a lot of the same cast members, even though they may be in different
Different
universes.
roles.
Wait a minute. So you're saying M. Night Shyamalan does not even consider himself a horror director? He considers himself drama?
Yeah.
Emotional.
Emotional.
Okay, I'm going to tie this into something I finally joined the party, and I know what the rest of the world is talking about now. I finally watched Bird Box over the weekend. Is Bird Box more of a horror movie than Sixth Sense is? Because I had a hard time classifying exactly what Bird Box is.
I guess so. But you know, Sixth Sense is way better than Bird Box.
That's what I was thinking, Asha. Thriller, maybe, but...
Because Sixth Sense was still kind of horror, how it had like the ghosts and stuff, and like the blood and the, gory.
supernatural, like feel
Like, yeah.
yeah,
supernatural
it was so good.
feels.
You'd have to definitely watch that. Okay, the next film he made 1 year later, Unbreakable. So it stars Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson. Bruce Willis is the only survivor of a train that crashed in a train wreck. Had like
Man,
192 people
I
died,
haven't watched that one yet.
and he walked through unscathed. So Bruce Willis, and this is I actually think that this Unbreakable is part of the trilogy, right? Spoiler, guys. Unbreakable, Split, and the new movie Glass is all part of one series.
Why did they take
trilogy of
so long to
films.
make these movies?
You know what? I wonder if he really planned it that way, but then the things that happen take
Probably
part
not.
20 years in the making. So in Unbreakable, Bruce Willis is a security guard, works at a stadium, survives this train wreck unscathed, and you know, through experimentation with his son, he starts to believe that he's a superhero. Like he has powers beyond what the normal human being can do. He can bench like 350 pounds, you know, and he has a weakness. We won't discuss the weakness, but the whole movie is basically him trying to define like the limits of himself as a man, right? Like, am I more than just this security guard, right? And he has a son. He's like maybe 12 years old in the movie. Glass takes place 20 years later, or like 15 years later, and the son is now an older man. Older man. And anyway, I don't want to get too much into that, but Samuel Jackson plays the opposite of Bruce Willis. He plays Mr. Glass, Elijah Glass, who's suffers from some kind of fragile bone disease, brittle bone disease, whatever the real term is for that.
Does he do the Samuel L. Jackson yell?
No, he doesn't.
Like Snake on the Plains kind of thing. But okay, I haven't seen the movie yet, not Glass anyway. But was that the same character that he played?
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson, as he did in
Yep.
So he didn't yell at all. That's a fail for me.
No, I don't think he yelled. Unbreakable is actually a really, really good, underrated.
I need to watch it.
Yes, I hope they die. I hope they burn in hell.
Oh yeah.
He didn't give you any of that.
No.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, he yells like at the end, but it's kind of different. I mean, I don't want to spoil the movie, but let's
go
like
and watch it.
Samuel
Yeah,
Jackson
don't.
is,
I haven't watched
you
it.
know, he's the opposite of what Bruce Willis is in the movie. And it's pretty cool because like if it was just that movie, that it would be just a great standalone film. But it's part of this trilogy, which
Makes
for
it
the
better?
most part is pretty good. I would say that movie's like a solid 7 out of 10.
No.
Actually, you didn't watch Unbreakable?
I have not watched it.
You gotta watch it. It's actually like, and it has a twist. Oh my god, it has a
They
twist.
all have a
which
twist. All
is
of his
pretty-
movies.
So, and I think like after you had Sixth Sense and it had the killer twist, and then you have Unbreakable, which has not, the twist isn't like that great, but it's pretty good. So you're thinking, man, this guy's always got the movies with the greatest like twist ending, and like I think that kind of defined his career. And for the movies that didn't have that, that's why we rate them so low. So
Or can you even, again, sophomore slump, can you even deliver a twist at the end of a movie which doesn't have the oomph, the impact, the hit you in the gut effect that, you know, finding out that Bruce Willis has been a ghost this entire time. That's really hard to do twice, if not better.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, oh man, I don't want to jump on a tangent here because I watched Glass, but Glass has a twist at the end that I think was good, and I didn't see that twist coming. But Glass also has its problems as a movie. But all right, next movie. How about the Signs? What's the Mel
The
Gibson movie?
Sign.
Asha was watching this earlier
We just watched the trailer.
to review. What'd you think about that going through it again after so long?
God, I was such a little girl when I watched that. That was what, 2002? I thought it was a creepy movie. Like anything that deals with aliens scares the crap out of me because I feel like that's something that could actually happen. You never know.
And what's the deal with the movie? Mel Gibson is a farmer and he owns farmland.
And they find a crop circle in their land, and the kids are like saying it's aliens or something, and you know, of course the parents don't believe them at first. And then they're starting to get more crop signs like throughout the world. I think there was like 70 some in less than a day. So like the government is looking into it, and then they're telling everybody like that it's not like a prank or a joke or anything, and just to like stay indoors or something.
I think there is one thing now that I look back on it retroactively that M. Night Shyamalan has probably done very, very well as a director. What was that trailer that you were showing me earlier, Asha? The Vision?
No, not The Vision. God, what is it called?
We were just watching. It was
it
like a
in
5
here?
minute.
The Visit.
The Visit. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
That movie was weird.
M. Night Shyamalan doesn't do jump scares, even though there was one like in the trailer for like Signs. You know, Mel Gibson's like banging on his torchlight, and he's trying to get it. And as soon as he's done, you know, cue the violins and everything like that.
I really
and
thought Signs was a good movie though. Like,
M. Night Shyamalan, when we were watching the trailer for The Vision.
The Visit, Jason.
The Visit,
gosh,
sorry.
you did not watch that.
Strike two. He does things in plain view and with plain dialogue, but it still scares the bejesus out of you because when we were watching that movie, like the old lady turned to like the two grandkids and she was like, "Oh dear, what'd you say? Would you like to come inside the oven and like?" It's
Can you go in the oven for me or something?
Whoa, that doesn't.
Check the oven.
That is not what the slasher movies of the '80s did, where it's all, you know, it's just creepy music and you get these weird camera effects and everything goes dark. And you know it's coming, you just don't know when it's coming. This is right out there, and it says it so plain, it really has an impact on you because it's right there.
It's also pretty scary because like the way it's filmed, the way it's shot is with like a handheld camera again, that style.
Yeah, a lot
like
of
the
it
grandkids are the ones.
was documentary style.
Are we gonna skip to The Visit? Are we gonna skip to The Visit?
Sorry, I was just jumping ahead. No, I'm sorry. I was just saying like he
Unless you have
that is one of his
say.
strengths. What he does, you know, he's not trying to do like all these other tropes that so many directors do.
No, I agree. I totally agree. So what would you give Signs though?
Like out of a 10 or out of a
Signs
5?
was still when he was at his apex. People were like, "Wow, this is a genius. This is a real transcendent filmmaker. This guy's going some places."
7 or 8.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Apparently, remember we are on video now, so people can see your facial reactions.
No,
apparently, you do not agree.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good movie. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Plus, Mel Gibson
7 or 8,
having Mel Gibson in it didn't
You
hurt.
were 7 or 8.
No, I don't know about
Joker,
7 or 8.
Phoenix is in that movie as well. Signs, right?
Yeah.
Is he?
Joaquin
Yeah,
Phoenix.
he's-
He's the brother.
Is the guy with the baseball bat?
Oh, see, and Joaquin Phoenix is in the next movie we're going to talk about as well, The Village.
Oh yeah.
Now that honestly is my second favorite
movie.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Interesting, because I was gonna say this from my vantage point. This is when people started turning their backs on him because they were like, "Okay, that was weird."
No way. I
It
thought
is
that one was
weird.
pretty
I
good.
mean, it is weird, but it's pretty cool. I like how they tied in like
The Mist.
the Red Riding Hood kind of theme with it, and like the whole time you're trying to figure out who's killing. Well, basically,
Where's
it's
the wolf?
this isolated
community
in some, you don't even know where it's really at, and you don't know what period of time this really is taking place, but they're just they're a older kind of community, and the kids or the young people are being like harassed or killed by like some wolf or something. People just disappear, and they tell you not to go beyond the boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yep.
Right?
Oh
and
Ron Howard's daughter.
Joaquin Phoenix.
The girl that ran around basically with a
Adrian
midriff
Brody.
showing in Jurassic World.
Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody,
Sorry.
who's in a great,
Oh yeah.
great
he
role
was in
there.
that.
Yeah, he did have that.
and that-
great
Was
role.
this before or after he won the Academy Award?
It was after.
It was okay.
You know, are we spoil? Are we just gonna straight spoil the movie?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
All right, I guess we're doing
I mean,
that. So.
damn.
We
how
already said
long
that Bruce
ago did
Bruce
that
Willis was
movie-
dead at the end of Sixth Sense, so
Yeah, we already got
it's
the
all
big
downhill
report.
from there.
This
So-
is a 2004 movie. We're
So anyway,
spoiling
someone is dying. Someone is dying, and they have to get medicine or some kind of help that they can only get outside of the boundaries of the community. But that's where the wolf is, right? And so Bryce Dallas Howard takes it upon herself to go, and it turns out she finds out who the wolf is, and the wolf the whole time was the mentally challenged Adrian Brody, who ends up dying at the end. Whatever, no big deal. And when she reaches past this boundary, like I don't know how much further past the boundary, she finds a sign to like Seattle or Oregon or something, and she's actually
Nice
in
big
present
freeway out
day,
there, yeah.
and she's on the freeway, and the cops, see her and take her. So the whole time they've just been a secluded community that raised their children and the people, the members of the society, to not know that there is a bigger world past their borders, which has some symbolism that speaks to a little different type of thing about keeping your communities close together.
It's a
or-
really strong idea.
It is.
I'm
I
trying to
actually think it's a
remember
pretty good
why
movie.
the elders went out there to form that commune, if you will.
They
It
wanted
was a
to,
commune.
because they didn't like the sin or whatever of the main world.
Remember Jimmy Jones over in, what was this at? Where he killed a whole bunch of people?
Jonestown.
Jonestown, yeah,
Mm.
because of the Kool-Aid and stuff like this, only because they're trying to get away from society and the way they do things, and let's just go and form our own community.
The Jonestown Massacre, yep.
And it was a massacre after all.
Yeah.
So when I was watching that movie, it was that came to mind. So I think they were tying it in with things that have happened historically, that were true. So it was
Yeah.
a very interesting movie. I did not catch on until towards the end, so that was a twist for me. Unlike The Sixth Sense.
And because you think it's a period piece, like everyone's dressed in like Quaker clothes, like the clothes
Yeah.
are
You
all.
think it's like
Like Amish almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah,
don't,
almost.
and you don't even know where it's at. Like you have no
What
idea,
time.
And you have the picket fences, and
Yeah.
everything was so nice and neat. And
Yeah.
it was
And
just-
like, as a viewer, you're just thinking like, this is the world there. That's their world.
Yeah.
And you don't realize like, oh wow, it's just like right in the middle of
Right.
contemporary America, like
Hey,
right
that's your
outside.
house right down the
All these
street.
dudes are smoking weed in Seattle, like.
Which kind of like, if you put it into perspective, which almost is like, the Amish experience.
I can see how people don't like the movie though, because it was kind of weird, but I thought it was pretty.
I thought
Great.
it was pretty
And
good.
I think everybody was expecting it to be like another Sixth Sense or another Signs. They're like, okay, where's the huge thing at the end that's gonna have
people
me?
have too high of expectations.
Yeah.
Just watch the movie.
All right. Now,
What do you guys gonna give that in terms of 1 to 5 stars though?
I'll give it 7.
I would
1
too.
to 5 stars.
A 1 to 5 stars?
Oh, wow,
Dang.
you really like that
I
movie.
like it.
1 to 5.
Well
I'll give
done,
it-
M. Night
I guess I'll give it
Shyamalan.
like a 4. I get like a 3.5 maybe.
Three and a
Yeah.
half.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why we went to the 10 scale.
Yeah, Chase, come on, man. It's 2019. We're done with the 1 through 5 star scales. We're on the 1 to 10 scale.
All right, moving up in the world.
All right, next,
Next.
Lady in the Water.
Okay, you guys got this. I don't know. Never watched it.
I thought this was interesting. Not great, but very intriguing. I mean,
Dude, I don't remember what happened. I just know that they found that lady. You know what I mean? And I don't remember if she's like a mermaid or what. Like, it was a whack movie though.
yeah, and
I
it was
What did it get online?
25%.
25%.
25%. That's Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic?
Doesn't
Rotten
say.
Tomatoes.
That's Rotten
Metacritic.
Tomatoes.
Metacritic
Oh, where
is
does it show it?
36. This is Metacritic.
And it had 212 reviews
Ooh.
on Rotten
Yeah, so we're
Tomatoes.
just gonna pass over Lady in the Water. That's a miss. You don't have to watch that one. I'm sure M. Night Shyamalan would
See,
like to
because
take that one
well,
back.
okay, I remember when this came out. And this was 2000. That was 2008. Lady in the Water.
2006.
2006. Okay, thank you.
Usually 2006 is like 13 years ago. It's crazy.
yeah, people were like, okay, you're doing a mermaid movie now. Again,
Well, it was a mermaid movie,
Har-
right?
yeah,
like,
harkening-
that was a mermaid. I don't even.
or
remember.
a siren or something like that. You know, it's because people were like, okay, you came up with an original idea that was so creative and so innovative, and again, you blew our minds with the whole Bruce Willis thing, and now you're going to almost like Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale.
See, and that's the thing is like, the first thing I'm thinking.
And
when
now you're
trying to
doing
remember
myths.
the movie is like, what is the big twist at the end of this movie? But I don't think there was a twist.
Yeah.
I don't remember. And see, that's the thing. Like, his career is defined by those first three films that he did. Like by the endings of those first three films. So it's kind of like.
Now, would you say, like, in all fairness, though, do you guys appreciate the fact that he was taking risks by doing these? He made his money already, and he'd already established himself, but is he trying to grow as an artist at this point?
Obviously.
Of course,
Yeah.
and like
Or is he just fulfilling his contract, like like Adam Sandler right now with Netflix?
No, man.
The first movie he did with Netflix was pretty good. The only other Adam Sandler one.
Every Adam Sandler
No,
movie on Netflix.
you watch a Mariah with stories?
No, I don't watch
That was good. That was really
Wait,
really good.
what is a movie on Netflix with Adam Sandler?
There's a bunch. What's the 7? Like the kids.
Oh,
Anyway, see, that's what I'm talking
the
about.
sin-
You can't
not the
remember.
Sinister Seven. Like it's a western with Terry
Damn, I
Crews.
guess I
And the-
haven't been watching Netflix.
Who's that guy from the vampire movie?
He's in one with David Spade, and it's like some
Yeah.
stupid. It's really. I mean, it's typical Adam Sandler movies. It's just he's 20 years older now, and he's doing goofball humor.
Mm.
The plot of this movie, The Lady in the Water,
Mhm.
I did not see that movie, but I was reading some of the reviews here, rather the small, short synopsis
Pulling a
of the
Jason.
movie. Wasn't there a movie last year about that fish that was in a tank?
Yeah.
The Shape of Water.
The Shape of Water.
Is there something similar to that, perhaps?
Fish that was in the
Having
tank.
this strange
And that lady fell in love with.
It's kind of. I mean, but it's real. Shape of Water is a lot more grotesque, and it's actually. But Shape of Water is a really good movie. That's probably Guillermo del Toro's.
Did it-
Which won the Academy Award for best film,
Did it? Dude,
I believe
it's really
so.
good. It's
Yeah, I
actually
believe
pretty
so.
good. So.
and yet everybody's.
Lady of Water.
And yet everybody
Lady
like
in the Water is not that.
25
It's
years
kind
from
of
25 years from now, everybody's gonna look back and say, "Wait, The Shape of Water won the Academy Award when Get Out is still in the year 2030,
The point that I'm trying to
2045."
make is that the influence that he has, this
Mhm.
director, the influence he has in future storytelling
Sure, yeah.
and stuff like that, it might
Yeah.
have that impact.
Possibly,
so
possibly.
You could easily say that he was successful even in a bad movie. that
For
he
sure.
was, or
No, I
directed.
totally agree. You don't. Not every movie you make is gonna be gold, right? They're not all gonna be that good.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
having a #1 hit every time you do a recording.
Yeah.
Okay, but look at the guys who do though.
Except when you're Elvis.
How can you name me? No, because there are some. Name me a movie where Spielberg completely crapped the bed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who don't like Minority Report, but that was a great movie. You and I really like that
Minority
movie.
Report is crazy. Minority
Yeah.
Report is one of the
nuts,
best
but
movies.
It's a good movie.
Scorsese,
Okay, well he doesn't make mistakes. No, yeah, we're good.
yeah.
he
Your
didn't make any
favorite?
He's
mistakes.
that
Yeah,
good.
he's good.
Quentin Tarantino.
Okay, well, what Quentin
Robert
Tarantino movies
Rodriguez.
did I not like? I'm sure there's a lot of Robert.
But see that's
Rodriguez.
the difference with M. Night Shyamalan for some reason, because so going back to what I was just talking about a moment, you guys, if you can agree that he's taking risks and he's trying to grow as an artist, he's subjecting himself to massive criticism, because again, at this point in history, now you've got Facebook is on the rise, and now you've got Twitter, and now you've got YouTube, where everybody's snarking on you for every single thing.
Sure, and I will say that probably with the end of the Village, that was the start of the 10-year failure of movies that was M. Night Shyamalan's career. Right, he did Lady in the Water, which is just not that good. He did The Village, which some people like, but I could definitely see some people not liking.
The
And he
Happening.
did The Happening, which until his next movie was probably the worst movie ever made.
The Last
The
Airbender.
Happening was
Okay.
the Mark Wahlberg movie.
Interesting-
like, people are committing suicide, right? They're
Interesting again, because we come back to Bird Box, is there's a lot of people who believe that a lot of what happened in Bird Box was lifted directly from
The Happening.
Sure.
The
yeah,
Happening
yeah,
and
yeah.
from A Quiet Place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
could see that.
yeah. The Happening was so, and I like Mark Wahlberg, man. That was such a crappy movie. That was so bad, and then that ending
It
was so
pretty bad.
But and I think at that point he
Was
just
it-
sold out, and he's like, man, I gotta have some kind of good twist at the
Yeah.
end just to end the movie because that's what people expect.
What was the twist?
The twist at
Was
the
the
end
bees?
is
Something with the bees?
It was the plants, right? But so he shot himself at the end,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Mark Wahlberg, or like, oh no, he killed the kid
And then.
and the
okay.
wife, right? Or like the wife died. And
Wait, you're talking about
Honestly,
The Happening or The Mist?
that's the happening, right?
Because The Mist also remember that movie The Mist with that was Thomas Jane though, and there's something where everybody in the world is dying, so Thomas Jane turns around and he looks at his 2 young children and he's
Is he in a truck? He's in a truck in a vehicle.
I don't believe so, but I know he goes, hey, if I'm gonna have to lose my kids, they're gonna go my way. So he turns around and he shoots his own children in the face. And then the crazy thing about it is all the death stops right after that. He didn't need to do that, and that's why
I
The
think
Mist.
that's the mist.
That's The Mist,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
blows everybody away.
Man,
I remember
That was
that.
that was
happened in
Thomas
The
Jane.
Happening?
Thomas Jane's
That
like,
was
And
in
then the
there.
military guys come by him, right? Like there's a military like.
no, that was
troop.
Dreamcatcher.
Isn't
bro.
the mist though
Yeah.
like?
That was Dreamcatcher, which is crap.
Was the mist like aliens or like some weird thing in the mist?
Yeah,
Like there was some monster.
you never really understood it, but he
Or, like-
killed his own kids, and at the end he didn't need to, and that's what
Yeah.
everybody freaked
See,
out.
man, I don't remember.
And
I'm
the-
trying to figure out
The
what happened
confluence
at
of
the
all
end.
of these ideas, because of M. Night Shyamalan, really came together, and everybody was like, "You got to have this crazy ending
Yeah.
that nobody sees coming. You have to And again, we go
See, I'm
from
thinking
we
that
go from
happening
making
is that
people
one
jump
that
out of their
happened.
seats throughout the movie with all these jump scares to having them walk out of the movie with their jaw dragging on the ground
That
like,
was
like I cannot believe what I just
Yeah.
saw in the last 2
So
minutes
he
of
had
the
that
movie.
influence. That's
Yeah.
the movie.
Did that not happen? What happened? Uncle King, can you find out what happened in the end of the happening? Like now, I want to know.
He kills himself, right?
I don't
Science
know.
teacher's wife and a young girl struggle to survive the plague that causes those infected to commit suicide. I don't know about the ending. I did not
I'm
see
just
that.
gonna Google the ending of the.
So
Happening.
anyway, while Asha does that for us, guys, the point is, the movie sucked. Right? We're moving on. Okay, last.
In
Airbender.
summary,
So I did say The Happening sucked, and this next movie was worse than
What's
that.
Was
And it was
worse?
The Last Airbender, which
Oi.
was based off of Avatar, one of the greatest animated series of all time.
and this is something that you can speak with a certain amount of expertise because
I
you
don't-
are a big
I
anime
actually,
guy.
well, this is I don't really like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't really like that kind of anime, but it is critically acclaimed and it's really good.
Won the Academy Award for special effects, I do believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Everybody was so high in this movie when it was coming out.
what
The Last Airbender.
so M. Night Shyamalan, he gets the live action version of The Last Airbender, and he in the animation they're Asian. The Avatar, the Airbenders are like they're Asian, but in the live action, he cast white folk and a couple Indian people, right? And yeah, he got a lot of backlash for it, and the movie sucked. It was a horrible movie, trashy movie. I don't really think it's his fault. It's just some things don't translate to real life well, especially some elements of fantasy, right? I mean,
Because
that's
this
the
was not a thriller, and this was not quasi
whole- no, this
horror.
had nothing like that. This is an action adventure type of movie, right?
I remember when this was coming out, people said, okay, now his career path is forking. He was, again,
This is when he went into full Michael Bay mode. Like,
Yeah.
nah, he's gonna sell out.
Steven Spielberg started out doing Jaws, then he did Close Encounters of a Third Kind, and people thought, okay, he's the scary guy, or he's a sci-fi guy, and now all of a sudden he did E.T., and then he did Goonies, and wow, this guy's a filmmaker. That's what M. Night Shyamalan tried to do with this, but he did not do well.
Oh, it's horrible. 5%. That's what the approval rating is on.
And he gets budgets for these are major,
Yeah.
big budget studio productions. I
But
mean,
you
some
know,
guys,
I
some
mean,
people is writing him checks for
But
this.
the idea on paper is good. Like, that series is critically acclaimed. Like, people love that cartoon or that series. So it's surprised.
And it's
He
so.
really dropped the ball on that one. I
What do you think of? What was the reasoning for that? Because it's
I think it just doesn't translate into real life well. Like, I think if you gave it to any other director, they probably had the same kind of difficulties to put that film together. It was probably pretty difficult. And the casting was poor. So.
Well, it was the producer of that movie. He wasn't the director, as per this information that I have in front of me.
Okay, well,
I
what's
think
funny is
he directed it too.
what's funny is again is Asha's gonna have to give me the name of that movie because I've gotten it wrong twice.
The Visit?
The Visit. Thank you. Almost had strike 3.
Okay, so the end of the happening. Sorry,
Yes.
Jason.
No, for sure.
Well, I really don't remember it going this way. So the three, Mark Wahlberg, Zoe, and whoever the other person is.
That was Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah. So those three, they're just like, okay, whatever. I guess we're gonna die, but nothing happened. So they think it ended, and then it like flash forwards to like 3 months later, and the girl's pregnant, and they're talking about the baby or whatever. But then in the background, like the news is going on saying that it's not over because something happens in France. So it just like comes back. So they think it's over, and for 3 months they're good and they're living their life, and then whatever it is hits France.
I don't even remember.
So it was stupid.
Yeah, that's a hard pass, guys. You don't have to watch that movie. Okay, how about After Earth?
Clearly, Mark Wahlberg made better career decisions after that because, of course, he did Transformers.
Okay, how about After Earth?
I saw this on a plane coming
Hard
back
pass.
from.
You watched After Earth?
I watched After Earth on a
Oh, wow.
plane coming back from the Bay Area when I was on a business trip.
Sure.
Will Smith and Jaden Smith. Hard movie to watch because it's weird.
Never
I mean,
did that one.
you feel the isolation. The fact that Jaden Smith is out like in the wilderness, in the wild. Will Smith is trying to guide him through that, but is confined to like that little fuselage, the cabin, the space, whatever like that. He can't directly help him. It's a bizarre movie.
Yeah, I mean, and it's Earth, right?
Yeah.
Which is super weird. Like, I don't know. I think that was just kind of one of those movies like Jaden Smith. You know, he's a big star. Is coming off the heels of Karate Kid, right?
Oh yeah, that made.
Right. So I mean, you know, and you know, they got Will Smith, and you know, let's put the father and son together in this blockbuster movie, and
And it sucked.
kind of
And again, this was more traditional sci-fi. This was not.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, which is I would say it's not his forte. Like those types of movies aren't the ones where you know I really like. Oh, M. Night Shyamalan's directing this new action movie, and it's gonna be great. You know.
Okay, and the chronology again to kind of give it some perspective. This is the point in M. Night Shyamalan's career where people were like, now he's just struggling to find his place.
Yeah.
He's lost and he's just kind of throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so dovetailing to what Asha was saying before she talked about The Happening, right?
Then we're on your movie now.
Oh, okay, when we were watching The Visit, the end, the credit or the trailer, if you remember that, it says from the man who wrote and produced.
All
and,
these movies.
well,
the
it gives the big
Signs,
three. It
The
gives.
Happening.
I don't know if it did that.
It
but,
did. It said The Happening on
oh,
the.
okay, so The
preview.
Happening, Signs, and
I think
and
it was,
The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
But
And Unbreakable.
but also directed by the guy who did Sinister and what was the other one?
I forget.
It had a bunch of really violent, graphic horror movies. So to combine those two elements was
I
interesting.
thought The Visit was pretty okay. I thought it was like.
Would you say
I
that?
liked
watching.
it.
Would
I
you
thought it
say
was
M.
pretty
Night
good.
Shyamalan kind of, in an indirect way, kind of almost gave rise to the whole found footage thing? Because
No.
Because-
No.
did
because
not-
he
I would not
he
say that.
predates Paranormal Activity, and you see it in trailers. Everything.
Yeah, but when was his first found footage film? And even if it
Yeah.
was, it
Well, the-
still
well, the
doesn't
vi- yeah, the
predate
Visit
Blair
was-
Witch Project.
The Visit was 2015, Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a few years ago. Jason.
Oh,
How about
okay.
The Devil. You guys watch The Devil?
I think I did, but I'm not too sure.
So
Refresh
With the
my-
I
elevator.
actually think Visit is pretty good. I thought it was, compared to that 10-year run, that's like.
I think The Visit was good because it's something that could actually happen.
Now,
like-
no joke. This is straight up horror.
The Visit, yeah.
The Visit. Yeah. If you got the guy who directed Insidious and
Plot spoiler.
yeah.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
know the spoiler.
No,
right?
please.
So like these two kids, their grandparents want them to visit them. So the mom gets the two kids to go visit the grandparents, and they're filming everything while they're at the house.
Mhm.
And so like the grandpa's just telling them like, okay, well you have a bedtime. It's at 9 o'clock or 9:30 or whatever. and just don't come out of your rooms after that. And they're like, okay, whatever. But they hear a bunch of noise happening at like 10 o'clock or something. So they go downstairs and the grandma's acting all weird, like psycho. So throughout the movie, they're trying to tell their mom, like, there's something wrong with our grandparents. And she's like, they're just old. Just give them a chance or whatever. So they continue to stay with them. And then shit starts getting weird. Like the grandpa's acting weird and like...
The grandma chases them under
the grandma's chasing them.
The bottom part
yeah,
of the
underneath the house.
Crawl space or whatever, I don't know what you
So
call it.
like finally the mom's FaceTiming with the daughter or something, and the grandma's in the background. And the mom's like, "Get out of the house. That's not your grandparents.
Yeah,
Those are not your grandparents."
See,
so like,
and now he's come full circle, and that's how he started.
that's why that one was good. 'Cause
Yeah,
you're like,
I really like
God,
that.
like how do
And
you
all
not...
three of us like this. I haven't seen it. I just watched the trailer, but I was like, wow,
I
that's
guess, like,
strong.
You should
at
watch
the
it.
end-
I think you would like
Yeah.
it. It's
At
nice.
the end is when you find out, like, damn, they never knew who their grandparents were or something.
Yeah.
But that final scene in the trailer when like the grandmother just turns around and says, there's no real crescendo, there's no buildup of music or anything like that. It's like, oh dear, can you please get inside the oven? So it was like, whoa,
Yeah, I think
that's
you would really
that's
like
heavy.
it because really it's from the perspective of the kids most of the film. So things that you and I wouldn't find frightening if we were a kid and we were in that exact type of situation would be absolutely frightening.
When you're in the car, it's not looking at it through the windshield. You're as if you're riding shotgun, looking out.
Sure, and then like there's a time when they play like hide and go seek or something underneath the house. So like how you crawl underneath the houses have a little.
And the grandma's just
and
like,
the grandma's
I'm gonna
hiding
get
there.
you.
She's like, I'm gonna get you. She chases the kid. That thing is scary, dude. I was like, whoa, I liked it. It's a pretty good movie. And I like Devil too, which was also released. When was Devil released?
I don't know if I watched Devil.
The movie
I might be
poster had the
thinking of
elevator.
different.
Yeah, Devil was 2010 actually. So it was the same year as Last Airbender. It was a lot better than Last Airbender. It's a bunch of people are stuck in an elevator, and they die one by one, and then you have to figure out like why they're dying. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Okay, no, I have not.
Okay, first of all,
watched
if you just
Good
made
twist at the end of that movie.
if M. Night Shyamalan made a movie just about people getting stuck in an elevator, that would have been scary enough.
Well, I mean that's what happened.
That's
Yeah.
like one of my fears, like being stuck in an elevator.
Yeah.
That's so scary.
You know what I can?
think I just recently had a dream about being stuck in an elevator. Okay.
You know what I can never
Don't
get?
talk about
You know what I can
that.
never figure out? The two buttons that one means like open and one means close. I can never. I always get them backwards. It's like I'll always like push it, and I'm actually pushing
The wrong one.
the open
Yeah,
one, and I'm like,
and
why
like in
would
my
I close?
dreams about elevators, it's like when the door opens and like you think you're going to one place, but it's just like totally different. It's like hell. Like I don't know.
Like Inception.
Yeah, was that the movie?
Yeah, where Leo is going down the elevator and he ends up in like that room with the dead wife, and anyway, that's a different
Something like that.
podcast.
Yeah.
You gotta stop eating
That's what
lasagna
a-
at like 2 in the
that's what a
morning. Man.
Christopher Nolan
Lasagna.
podcast.
You get some bizarre dreams.
All right, we're at the tail end of this. We have 2 more movies. So this is the rest of the Unbreakable trilogy. We have Split, which actually has very
Split
little
was
to do
weird.
with the rest of the characters of Unbreakable. And it's James McAvoy. He
But
is
it
a
ties
person
in.
with a huge split personality. Like he has a bunch of different personalities. Like
What was
what
it,
do they
like,
call it? Dissociative
Was it
identity
30
disorder.
some or 20?
I forgot.
20
Maybe at least
Dissociative personality disorder. or
ID,
something.
DID.
He has
Uh,
like 25 or 24
And James
personalities.
McAvoy is such a good actor, like
Yeah.
able to, play all those different roles, like pretty convincingly.
But he was, and
Professor
always
X.
will be Professor X.
Sure.
Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, everybody.
But yeah, that's a great movie. It's pretty interesting, and it has probably one of the better endings of all the M. Night Shyamalan movies outside of The Sixth Sense, because the entire movie you don't know is part of the trilogy
Until the way end.
until the absolute ending, the last scene of the movie.
when you see
where you
what's his
see,
face in
Bruce
the coffee
Willis,
shop.
Bruce Willis in a coffee shop or a bar. He's watching something on TV. He's watching the news of James McAvoy on TV, and he's wearing his security.
But Bruce Willis was blonde in that movie, right?
In what
A blondish in The Sixth Sense. Or he had very fair brown hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Did he have hair?
I don't remember
Yeah, he had
his
hair. That movie, yeah.
I think he looked kind of different. I remember that was also one of the noteworthy things.
Well, anyway, that was the ending of Split, and it was a really good hype kind of teaser for Glass, which is out of theaters now, and we're not going to spoil Glass
Okay,
for you.
you know what's crazy? I was actually at the theater this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking at, while I was standing in line, I was looking at the marquee and the movie poster for Glass. It says, by the writer and executive producer of Unbreakable and Split comes a new movie. Doesn't even, maybe to your point, doesn't even say that the movies are interconnected. It just says it's by the same dude. Doesn't even mention M. Night Shyamalan by name. It's just, it's weird how they try and tie all these things together, but without tying it together.
It's interesting.
Is this supposed to be like a big inside joke?
I don't know, but I think that's the trilogy is a pretty strong series. To be honest, I really liked it as a whole, and I think Glass is a pretty good movie. For the most part, it's pretty good. It has a really big twist, which I think was pretty cool.
When did you watch Glass?